Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Pink Pill. I am your host, Jamie Lynn, and I have Scary Gary with me today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
That is a really interesting, Instagram handle.
Yeah, it's been my nickname across probably 5 different friend groups for as long as I can remember.
How did you get that name just because it rhymes?
Because I'm just insane. That's all it is.
We did have a little bit of a chat before we started this, and I had a page and a half of notes after I was done talking.
Yeah.
I was on a roll. But so you are, I just want my, viewers to kind of get to know you a little bit. You are a podcaster, a journalist, and a producer.
Producer is probably what I would consider what I am by trade. That's how I make my money. But what I do all the time is basically just podcasting.
What do you have a specific genre that you podcast, or is it kind of all over the place?
So I would say probably comedy. That's what I do the most in terms of quantity. But the main podcast that I've been producing, I started out producing a radio show. And that became a podcast, and it's called Come and Talk. It's about firearms, which is why I'm in Vegas.
Okay, yeah, so you were in Vegas we were just having a little chat. So
you thought I wasn't going to show up.
I wasn't sure. I went on your Instagram. And I was like, what the fuck did he do last night?
At the Venetian, getting
Because I saw
tanked.
that you were out, and it looked a little wild.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if this guy's going to make it.
No, I went to bed super late, and I woke up, and the first thing I did was... I woke up and was like, I got to make sure I get to this today.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a staunch professional, a staunch unprofessional professional. But yeah, no, we had a good time. The podcast I was talking about, Come and Talk, it got nominated for an award.
Okay.
Breakout Content Creator of the Year. And the Gundies was the award show that I was at. And there was a bunch of people there that, do you know who the Liver King is? He was there.
He got in major trouble for
lying about something?
Well, yeah, so he said that he was all natural and that he produced his body just through eating raw meat and liver.
Yeah, but look at that guy.
His fucking I know, but his test came back totally positive for test and whatever
everything,
else he's taking. Yeah. And then his apology was so lackluster. I was like, ew, this is his apology made me not like him even more.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, you're just gonna try to skirt around this and no ownership, no accountability at all, and he's still promoting the liver shit like he actually does it.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, because it obviously is now anything that he says is compromised. But I mean, I don't know why people lie about this stuff in the first place. Who gives a shit?
I don't really think it's that big of a deal. A lot of
Neither
people
do
do it. Why is that? Why is that even taboo? I guess it's taboo because of his brand. He's like, I'm natural. That's why it's taboo. If he just said, I do test and I eat liver, I feel like it would still work.
I love steroids and liver. But yeah, so he was one of the people that was there that I think a lot of people would recognize. And then I went with my buddy CJ, who on Instagram is Daddy's Juiced, and he works in the adult industry. And he is the only person I've ever met who I think is actually crazier than me. Okay. And we showed up and we were just he was already on one when I got here. He forgot that the show was tonight, was at the, yesterday. He forgot that it was at that time. So he was like, oh, fuck. He's like, I'm trash, dude. So then I was like, who gives a shit? Let's go. Let's have a good time. Let's party. They sat us front row. And we were just kind of obnoxious, and at a certain point, I was like, "All right, dude, we're out of here. I'm taking you, and we're leaving." So we walked out in front of the whole place, and it was fun. It was a good time. I had a lot of drinks because it was what we would call an open bar, which is a bad idea because I am probably an alcoholic. But we can get into that in a little bit.
In the right place.
Yeah. I've never been to Vegas. Ever.
Oh my God, stop. This is your first time.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I actually have a warrant for my arrest in Nevada.
Shut up, for what?
Do
you really want to put that out?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Yeah, hey, come find me. It's not even a big deal. Of all the things I've done, this is what I have a fucking warrant for. An unpaid speeding ticket.
Oh my
from
God.
From years ago, my buddy and I were driving to Texas from California. We got a speeding ticket. I literally just forgot to pay it. I was going to pay it. And... it added up somehow where when I ended up realizing what it was $3,000. And I was like, what the fuck? So what, why would I ever pay that? I was like, just come arrest me. I'll do a week in jail and then I don't know, no money. Come on. That's a no-brainer. Why would $3,000? Are you kidding me?
I know. Those
That's my mortgage payment.
Yeah, seriously.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, so you have an active warrant out for
Yes.
us, so that's good to know.
Active warrant. Alcoholic. Almost got kicked out of an awards
We're
show.
off to a great start, guys. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're safe, and you almost got into a fight too.
That's no, with my buddy.
Okay.
I just tackled him through this table, and we broke a stool in half. And like in Vegas, they don't have like cops at a lot of these places. There's like they have their own security.
A lot of times, yeah, it's like private security.
Right. That's why I'm not worried about getting arrested on that warrant because it's all security. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, we broke this stool, and then and the security came over, and we're sitting there like all wearing like our nice suits, and we were like, it was like out of a cartoon, like we're whistling, like nothing to see here type thing, And the security was like, these guys definitely did this, but we're not sure if they did it. But we didn't get in any trouble. It was fun.
I feel like they have bigger fish to fry in Vegas.
Right.
There's always like something like that that's like probably pretty low on the totem pole for like priority. So, when we were talking, one of the first things you said to me is, I hate therapy. And I was like, well, this is great.
Yeah. That's why I was so intrigued by it.
Were you really?
Yeah, because I saw Mac Lawson on here.
Yeah, so I had Mac on, and I actually just had Abby on, too. I don't know if you know Abby Ballin. Mac introduced me to her as well.
Okay.
And Mac and I like connected just over some of the red pill, stuff going around, and she was like, in my comments, and her and I were just like going at it, and I was like, who is this girl? I need to have her on. And then we just kind of hit it off, and then she connected me to you, and she said that she kind of gave you the go ahead for you as well.
Yeah.
And then so I watched some of your content, and I thought it was really interesting. I'm going to try to get to whatever we can, but you and I had like a good conversation just a little bit about how you grew up too, a little bit, that I thought was interesting. And then you said some stuff that was like, I want to ask you about for sure if we can get to it. But why is therapy? Why did that leave such a bad taste in your mouth?
Because growing up, I was like in and out of different therapists since I was probably like 12. And I don't think I even really was like a bad kid. Like, I didn't have bad intention. I just got in trouble a lot. I was like rambunctious and kind of obnoxious at times. But I wasn't like doing anything really bad until, it developed, I guess. But just at a young age, I went to a therapist at this clinic, and basically they were like, yeah, they told my parents, like, your son's like a deviant, and he's manic, and he's psychotic. And
how old were you?
14?
That's like really
maybe
young.
15.
You can't even diagnose somebody with psychosis at 14.
That is like pretty much how I felt. Looking back at it, that's how I feel, I should say. At the time, I didn't know what to think about it. I was young as fuck, obviously, but they told me I had ADHD as well, which later I got diagnosed bipolar, which I've looked into like a bunch of the research behind Adderall and like the long-term exposure to taking something like that or like abusing it, and I don't know like the facts on this. You'd know better than I do, but they say that people with ADHD who are given like abusive amounts of Adderall, and I was prescribed 50 milligrams when I was 15, which I don't know if you've ever taken that. Yeah, it's a lot, right? And over time, it can manifest itself into bipolar, allegedly.
I don't know too much about like the medication effects, like psychopharmacology isn't like I had to take a few classes on it, but I'm not a psychiatrist. So I don't know the ins and outs of like the effects of that or the permanent effects of that. But those are some wild diagnoses to send to a 14-year-old. And plus, like, I think one of the things when people are really young that you always have to consider is what's normal versus what is, like, abnormal. Somebody being hyperactive and rambunctious or somebody, rebelling, those aren't necessarily mental health disorders, and those aren't necessarily behaviors that even need to be medicated. But if you start somebody too young or you're not treating, like, the root of the behavior, I think it can lead to brain changes.
Oh, for sure.
Like, emotional changes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they put me on Adderall. Honestly, they started me on Concerta, which I don't know the specifics of what that is, but I was on Concerta, and then like maybe like 2 or 3 different things in a very short period of time. They were switching these medications because they thought I was like, like totally insane, which I don't think I am.
What are you?
Completely.
What are you doing to be like have?
Like I was getting in fights at school. I I wouldn't shut up in class. I was like extremely aggressive. Like I got suspended from school all the time. I was like skipping class. One time I got back from a suspension. This is a good story. And I showed up in my English class, and they had been studying Shakespeare, right? And I showed up, and it was my first class back from like a 3-day out of school suspension. I showed up, and like 10 minutes into class, we're listening to the book on tape, and I just stood up and threw my textbook on the ground and just yelled, "Shakespeare's a fraud," and just left. And they were like, "What the fuck's your problem?" Which, again, now looking back, if my kid did something like that, I would whip his ass. But it's in hindsight, you know, you get older, you get more mature, and you're just like, wow, kids are annoying sometimes. But like, I don't think that's a reason to put somebody on medication.
I don't think so either. I actually did that when I was in college, something very similar. Yeah, so like I don't like those kind of things. Like when I was talking to you, I kind of got the impression that you might have been misdiagnosed, like that, because I was like, this doesn't sound like anything way off base here. It sounds like you had behavioral issues, but I don't see any like long-standing like mental health condition, you know, like if anything you might meet the diagnostic criteria for oppositional defiant behavior, but
that was another thing that, yeah, I had also heard
ODD,
that prior.
yeah. ODD, like I mean I could see you being a match for that, but again that's not necessarily saying that you, like that doesn't meet mania. That doesn't, like bipolar 1 you have to have like an episode of mania, like that doesn't sound manic to me. And
those episodes last 3, 4, 5 days, or what's that?
Yeah, you have to have a manic episode. Like if you're bipolar 1, you have to have a manic episode lasting 5 days, and you only need one in your lifetime. That's it. And you could have
What?
Yep. And you could have a depressive episode the rest of the time. Most people think bipolar swings. Not necessarily. You can have one manic episode and the rest can be a depressive episode. And it still meets the criteria for bipolar 1. Bipolar 2 is hypomanic, so it meets the sub-threshold.
Wait, one, that seems, yeah. You can have one episode define what your mental health diagnosis is for your entire life?
Well, it's not just that. So like bipolar 1, you have to meet the criteria for mania and then MDD, so major depressive disorder. So you have to have both.
Okay,
but you only
so
need one manic episode.
Yeah, but if you only have one episode, then and the rest of the time you're depressed, wouldn't you just be depressed?
No, because you had a manic episode, so it's bipolar 1.
Weird.
I don't make the DSM.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It does, because MDD, there's no mania. So you have to have some kind of category to say, like, hey, this happened. Now, most people that have bipolar 1 are not just experiencing one episode. They are having swings,
right.
But the way it looks like it's not a high and a low and a high and a low. Usually it's long periods of major depressant, and then you have these one-offs of mania.
Okay.
That's typically what it looks like, where people think, like I've had people try to fake bipolar with me when they're in my office. They're like acting happy and then they're acting sad and then they're acting happy and I'm like, that's not what that looks like at all.
Yeah, that just sounds
attention seeking.
Yeah.
Personality disorder related. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Like a social thing.
It's that when somebody tries to do that with me, they're usually looking for FMLA. Like, tell me I'm disabled, write me a letter, I can't function, or...
Oh, they're trying to, like, finesse some drugs or some disability paycheck or something like that?
That's not Munchausen?
No, Munchausen's by proxy is when you, you have a parent that's getting, that's making a child sick, or needs somebody to play the sick role.
Oh, okay.
Right, and then they're getting intrinsic reward and validation for that. It makes them feel good to be the caretaker, but then they're imposing that on the child. Yeah, sick as fuck. Who just came out with it? She just got released from prison.
Yeah, that
Did
girl.
you guys watch the Netflix Gypsy Rose?
Yes.
Oh, she killed her mom?
She killed her mom, but her mom had Munchausen's by proxy. So she could walk, and her mom said, you can't use your legs.
What?
Yes. She said she couldn't
wheelchair.
use her legs, so she wasn't allowed to walk. Her mom made her get a feeding tube. So she wasn't allowed to eat normal food. Like, it was wild.
Oh, wow.
What happened. And she just got released from prison. She's got a new hubby.
Yeah.
New hubby. I'm worried about that relationship, man. That is gonna crash and burn.
Why is that?
Ooh, well, I mean, just me kind of looking at, it's him. It's him.
Is he
I'm
crazy
like,
too?
this guy, like I've read some of the DMs and stuff like that. He's trying to be out there. He's trying to be out there. He's trying to get fame and notoriety.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and that concerns me for her. Because she's having to do things to put him up on a pedestal. Like, I saw this, like, if you go on his Instagram, it's mainly him on it. Like, him at her red carpet event, and it's him on there. And I was like, ew, that's gross.
So when I hear things like, what'd you call that,
It's called Munchausen's by proxy.
So, like, when I hear about things like that, that's actually, like, insane.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy. And then, so, comparatively to, like, what my experience is, I don't think I'm actually, like, mentally ill. I think I'm just, like crazy. Like, I'm just a wild person. I'm just kind of emotional, you know what I mean? I'm Italian.
I same.
Yeah,
likewise. I do know how it is. Don't piss me off, no.
Are you Sicilian?
Sicilian, yeah.
Same. I'm like half Sicilian, like the Italian side. I'm Italian and German.
Oh my God, so am I. My mom is French and German.
That's Germans and Italians are the craziest. It's the craziest combination you can have.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, that explains a lot. No?
Yeah. Well, genetics play a role in a lot of things, right?
I do think genetics. Yeah, I do think that you can have predispositions, but I believe more in environment than I do genetics.
Yeah, I read a number one time that said that like the nature versus nurture it's like, God, I don't even want to make up what it is 'cause I can't remember, but it was definitely the number, like the ratio of how it affects you was definitely more on the nurture side.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have like twin studies that kind of prove that too, like lifestyle choices and things like that.
Right.
You told me like, I don't want to misquote you. I'm trying to find it over here. You told me that like, you said that you don't have normal feelings, and you described yourself as a sociopath.
I think that over time, because okay, so this is what we originally were talking about. It's like I got in trouble for a lot of things I did not do growing up. Yeah. I was constantly getting in trouble. I always had like, because I did do a bunch of dumb shit, and I was always like, hey, look at me, because I was always trying to entertain people. I always want to be the center of attention. So I'm not like shirking responsibility, but I painted a target on my back when I was in high school, essentially. I was like one of the worst kids in my high school, but I was just seriously, like I was just trying to like entertain people and get attention. I don't know where that desire comes from. My dad's kind of the same way. I think we're just entertaining people.
It's probably part of your gift, though.
Right.
You know?
So when I did that, like a lot of the teachers didn't like me, so I was constantly in trouble. And then that just spilled over into me hanging out with bad kids because I was like getting in trouble. So I started hanging out with bad kids, and I started doing like actually getting in serious trouble. And then I started getting in trouble with the police, and then in a town like where I grew up, it's not a big place. So like the police knew who I was, and when things like I got pulled out of class one time and questioned about somebody, like these people robbed like a tool shed, and they were questioning me about it. I had nothing to do with it, and they were like, the detectives were like convinced that me and my friend robbed this place. So like stuff like that was happening to me all the time growing up. And prior to getting in trouble in high school, I got kicked out of a Catholic school when I lived in Kentucky. And again, it was just like, I was just an out of control person, but I wasn't like, I never had malintent. So over time, and again, I might have had the definition of sociopath incorrect, but I have empathy. I empathize with people. I care a lot about people that I love. And I have like feelings, but I definitely don't view feelings normally, which is why I struggle severely with relationships. It's like the one aspect of my life that I can't like win. I can't nail it down, you know?
What do you mean, like, you struggle with like romantic relationships or like relationships in general?
Well, romantic relationships for sure.
Okay, because you seem pretty social and like well adjusted to me.
Yeah, until I'm not. You know what I mean? Like until I get irritated about something, and then it's like, because I don't make you mad. I'm the same way. Like once I get pissed, it's anything's on the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Like, are you a little ruthless then? Or?
Yeah. Like I just don't. I don't like. You know, I'm telling you, it's like it's a ingrained in the way I was raised. It's like maybe an Italian thing. It's like loyalty, respect, like stuff like that. Very Sicilian. Like my grandma's super Sicilian, and she's like that was all she preached, you know. So, I think that was ingrained in me the way I was raised because I spent a lot of time with my dad. My brother spent a lot of time with my mom, And my brother is way more like my mom, and I'm way more like my dad. And my dad's fucking crazy. He's covered head to toe in tattoos. He's like, that's a whole other thing. But yeah.
Why were you guys separate?
My parents got divorced, and then, I'm not really sure. Like we always, my brother and I always lived together, but I just spent a lot more time with my dad. I actually don't know why. I guess I never really thought about that. My mom and my brother were tight. You know what I mean? I think it's just because maybe nature versus nurture. Maybe like they were just more similar, so they got along better.
You just gravitated to what you felt more comfortable with.
Yeah. I actually have no idea how that played out like that.
Because it's an interesting dynamic, It's an interesting dynamic that, like, here you are, same family, and then one went this way, one went this way.
Right. But, like, when I talk about feelings like that, like what we were talking about on the phone, it's not that I don't understand how people feel. I don't think. It's more so that I just don't feel the same way about things. Like it potentially might not even be a feelings related thing. It might be more so my worldview is just so skewed because I have so many experiences that I can't relate them to anyone because nobody's experienced it. You know what I mean? So, like things like that only people who have been in a lot of like trouble, like being repeatedly in trouble was probably what defined my childhood. So that defined my worldview in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
To me, I think like when somebody has like a troubled history, or they're hearing how bad they are. A lot of times, what they will do is they take that, and then kids are really good at making everything their fault, especially if the world and people that you trust, like teachers, priests, whatever, are telling you that, and then they start to believe this lie that something is wrong with them or that they're not normal. And these things are not true. Like, it sounds like you might have had a behavioral issue, but right? But
for sure, 100%.
Here's the thing. That's not the same thing as pathology. Like, we can't put those two things in the same box. Like, I can't just say, somebody's fucking angry and somebody's, misbehaving, so they're a psychopath. I can't do that, right? Like, and yet, you hear these labels being, like, you had a lot of labels thrown at you that, quite frankly, didn't really stand up to any kind of diagnostic criteria. At least not, wasn't the one diagnosing.
And then they just loaded me with drugs.
Right, and then they're self-medicating you, and I think that there's a lot of, like, misinformation, and then you go on in life thinking that oh, hey, I don't feel things normally, hey, something is wrong with me, hey, maybe I am a bad kid, and then you start to internalize that, and then guess what, you see the world that way, and that's a really fucked up way to live, especially if it's not even true.
Right. And then not to mention, like, putting any kid on amphetamines like that, in my opinion, is like insane, because basically you're introducing them to something that's pretty similar to meth, and that gives you this it gives you it opens the door for you to start doing other drugs. Because I was put on Adderall, and once I started taking Adderall, then I was like, oh, this is drugs. Like, this is a thing I can do. I can do this to alter how I'm, how I move, how I operate. So then I started experimenting with like fucking every drug under the sun. But that's like, again, mislabeling somebody and then loading them with drugs. It's so crazy to me that people would do that. I mean, you wouldn't give a kid fucking cocaine,
I know Adderall in a sense is kind of like, prescription meth.
That's literally what I've been saying forever. Like, yo, this kid's fucking out of control. Let's give him meth. How the fuck is that going to help? You're literally giving somebody something that's going to probably make any sort of, I mean, amphetamines make you have mood swings when you take them for a long time.
I think if you really see, a lot of people are taking these things, and again, they don't meet the diagnostic criteria for ADHD. It's overly diagnosed, and we get things wrong a lot of times. But if you actually do have ADHD, it really does, the research does show that it does help focus, it does help the hyperactivity. But it's like, does somebody really have it and they're being medicated for it? Right. Or are they
is this part of normal development and they're a little hyperactive, or you have somebody a bit rambunctious, or they're dealing with stuff at home and they're acting out, and then you're saying they have ADHD and then you're medicating them. Like, these are the things that are really hard to start to define.
But what do you think about like, even if somebody, so you're saying it's a misdiagnosis, misdiagnosis
Not
issue.
necessarily. I'm saying that I do know that medication definitely serves a purpose. I'm not anti-medication.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that is it actually treating what it was designed to treat? Because a lot of people are saying they have ADHD and they don't, and they're getting that prescription for it, which
Right.
is going to fuck with your brain. But
Right.
there are a lot of studies show that, hey, look, if you really do have ADHD, it does help them focus. And so you don't want to completely say, like, all these things are bad. I think used with the right, conditions, supervision, and you have enough self-control, like, these things can be productive and they help people, but a lot of people abuse and misuse it as well, and a lot of people aren't being diagnosed accurately either.
I would still say that before anybody's ever prescribed drugs, they should go down some natural route. Like, potentially just something as simple as getting more sleep, getting more exercise, adjusting when somebody wakes up to go to school, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, I didn't get a lot of sleep either. That was another thing as a kid that I really struggled sleeping. Like, I never got good sleep. As I got older, that definitely changed. But I think things like that could have helped me more too. Because I got kicked off the hockey team. So, like, once I wasn't in sports anymore, that was another thing that just contributed to me getting into like just a ton of trouble. But I think my situation was kind of a perfect storm. I don't think that's totally normal. In fact, I would say it's like I'm a complete outlier in every way. But I still do think that we should avoid giving medicating kids, and I view it as a last resort.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. Like, there's a big argument in the community, and there's a lot of, like, there's positives and negatives on each side. I can see.
What kind of natural remedies would you say you would recommend for somebody who is having issues like I had as a kid?
Like behavior issues.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I actually used to work with kids that had severe behavior issues, actually. I used to work in the ITFC unit, which is intensive treatment foster care. So I was a social worker for 8 years.
Okay.
So I got the kids that, like, unfortunately, a lot of people didn't want, and they had major behavior issues. So I did a lot of things. The first thing I did was have empathy, and the second thing I did was listen. I just listened to them. I just wanted to understand them, and I wanted them to feel seen, and I wanted them to feel heard, because they're acting out for a reason. They're trying to tell me something, and I always say you have to look past the behavior. That doesn't mean I tolerate bad behavior, though. Let me tell you that. It wasn't like they can just act some type of way around me and they get a pass, okay?
Right.
But I cared, and I think that, and I genuinely cared, and I think that they could feel that. So I think you have to start with the love and compassion first. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. Like, most kids that are acting out, it's not a neurological thing. Most kids that are acting out, it's usually problems at home. There's bullying. There's something they want to say that they can't. They're not feeling seen and they're not feeling understood. So if I can help them identify what they're feeling, so giving feeling words, helping them develop a language to express themselves, I start with that, and then I go from there to see what's going on. And then we work on the behavior stuff. So
Right.
I love natural consequences. That's my favorite thing to do with kids.
So
And adults
basically,
too, actually.
like that process, you were
Mhm.
helping these kids try to understand how they feel and what their feelings actually are, so that they could basically prevent themselves from behaving the way that they were negatively.
I wanted to know, I wanted them to feel seen. Okay, somebody acting out wants to be noticed. Okay, there's something wrong. So I want them to know that I see you and I'm curious about what's going on. It's not a power thing for me. I genuinely want to know. And so that helps decrease the anxiety. Now, if I can connect with them, they're more likely to receive what I have. If they don't feel like I'm trying to lord over them, punish them, tell them what to do, they're more likely to receive what I have.
That's funny. So you're essentially filling a role of, like, for these foster kids, like, they don't have parents, correct? Essentially.
Right.
So that is another thing I think that contributed to me getting in a lot of trouble. Is I didn't have my dad was around, and I'm not saying he's like a bad dude or anything, but I don't view him as having been a very good father to me. Shout out my pops though. He is a good guy. When I go I'm going to Ohio with Laser, and he's actually gonna like chauffeur us around to the different shows. He's a good guy. I'm not trying to like bash him or anything, but like what I was getting at was that young boys definitely need strong male role models, and I did not. So and my dad was kind of like a crazier guy too. So I just thought that was normal. And my brother spent a lot more time with my mom and my mom's dad. And my mom's dad was like his male role model. So that's probably why my brother didn't get in as much trouble as I did, if that makes sense.
It does. Like research shows that the strongest role model is always a same-sex parent. So if that's absent for you, like you don't really have a guiding light, you know?
Right,
you don't really
right.
have that safety and that connection. You're just kind of on your own.
Yeah, and then like you basically go out looking for that role model somewhere else, and it tends to be like some sort of older brother type like person you're looking for, and if you just get caught up with the wrong people, then you're going to be getting in trouble like I did, because I was hanging out with a lot of bad people when I left Ohio. So the reason I left was because I ended up getting Ohio's when I was growing up, it was pretty much the epicenter for the heroin epidemic, right? So you got I-75 and I-70 intersect in Dayton, and there's two biggest drug trafficking highways in the country, sex trafficking also, which like heroin decimated my hometown. I was like 14. It was around the time I started getting in a lot of trouble. I was 14, 15. My first friend died from a heroin overdose. And then it was just like probably every year until I left. But basically I got into heroin, started doing other drugs and stuff too. And we ended up robbing. I got in trouble for a breaking and entering, basically. And I was looking at going to like prison at 18. And I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. So that was like, I kind of had like my scared straight moment with that. I was like, holy shit, like I could go to prison for like a long time and like actually destroy my life. And then I started working on my grandpa's farm, saved up some money, and I just got on the Amtrak in Cincinnati and booked it to California and started studying film. And that was definitely a turning point in my life. But like drugs like are definitely something too, that like when you grow up in a place like Dayton, where like I was fortunate enough to live in the suburbs and my mom was middle class. My dad didn't make a lot of money, but like I at least had my mom, which was like a stable, like, okay, so there is a potential to like that I have a future. But like a lot of kids I grew up with were worse off than me, and they just like have that like fuck it attitude. You know what I mean? And that was another like huge thing growing up, was just all the heroin and all the drugs. It was crazy.
And like, I mean, don't you think that like probably had something to do with your behavior and how you were interacting with people? See, that's not a mental health condition. You know, that's not psychosis. That's not mania. That's like shit in my world is really fucked up. And I think a lot of times that's actually the appropriate emotional response. Like when shit is fucked up, guess what? We respond poorly a lot of times. That doesn't mean that we get to hurt other people or hurt ourselves, but like it makes sense. And like that's what you need to figure out. Like that's what we have to figure out and start treating, not necessarily like diagnosing and then, like you said, I guess even medicating in that sense. You need a full picture of what's going on.
You know, I think another thing too is that not all people fit like the mold. It's like and the school I went to, at least, and I imagine a lot of high schools are like this. It's very like cookie cutter, where if you don't fit into that, you're like, okay, well this kid's fucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like kids that that don't fit the mold, I think do need special attention. For sure.
I agree. Like we have that whole like no child left behind kind of, ideology, but like are we really actually doing that? Like socially, like social development is so important in children, and if there's bullying, if there's troubles at home, like we're not really connecting. And then I feel like the incel community, I know you've talked about that.
I was just thinking about this too.
I feel like that's a huge, like if I was to look at their background, I'd probably see a background like that of not fitting in, not like wanting intimate relationships, but lacking some social skills on how to get that, maybe like low self-esteem issues. And then what happens is this turns into self-hatred, and then they're projecting that onto their relationships.
And then they hate everybody that's around them, basically.
They hate everybody. Right? And then now they're in a fucking echo chamber of other people that hate other people like that, or they're honestly they're privately seeking the approval of the women they hate. That's my best definition of an incel.
So, well, okay. So by definition, an incel is involuntary celibate. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But so why this is interesting to me is that I have no problem getting laid, like whatsoever, and I get called an incel in the comments on my reels regularly. So does my buddy Eli that I do this with, and trust me, he also does not have a problem getting laid. He's a super good looking guy. He's fit. He's got a decent amount of money. You know, like he's a put together person. And one time I was like, why do these people keep saying this? Like they don't know us. They have no idea what they're talking about, and neither of us fit that. And we're definitely also, I would not say, seeking validation from any women, privately or publicly or anything. I don't care. I just like doing my thing and being funny and entertaining people. And if people like me, cool. If they don't like me, they can go fuck themselves. I don't give a fuck. But like, we keep getting called incels, which is it's inaccurate by definition. But this girlfriend of mine, she was like, so the reason they're saying that is because you guys have like what they're viewing as some sort of like animosity towards women. But I also don't think we have that.
Who is calling you an incel? Is it
People
other
in comments.
incels or is it
that's,
just
and
like...
that's where I was going with this.
Okay.
You're saying like they're projecting it. So is that potentially what's happening with that?
That's the way I read that. Now, I'm not in your comments. I don't know who's necessarily commenting, but when I see people like... I do a lot of shit about I'm relating it to like kind of what I've gotten in the comment sections.
Right.
I do a lot of shit about narcissists. Everybody calls me a narcissist.
Call you a narcissist. that's what I was totally.
And and I'm like, why? Like I just asked them why. Nobody can answer me
because they don't even know what the definition
exactly.
is.
They don't, and I'm like, and you don't want to battle with me on that one, bitch. Sorry.
Because you already know your shit, right?
I fucking do. Let's go if you want to go there.
Well, the people that are always calling me an incel. They literally look like the kind of guys whose girlfriend I would fuck. Like it's not, it's projection at its finest.
I feel like a lot of that is projection, or because like I kind of want to know what clips you're saying where they're getting that, because if it's anything pro women.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what's so weird about this is that it's. I did one on gaslighting because I think gaslighting is fucking bullshit. It's not even. It's not a clinical term. The
gaslighting's not bullshit, but go ahead.
How funny is that? I'm gaslighting as I'm talking about how gaslighting's not real. It's gaslighting inception. But the gaslighting is one of the most misconstrued terms that exists, for sure.
Like misuse,
all
maybe?
the time. Gaslighting comes from a 1938 play from fucking Europe. It's about this guy who. Are you familiar with this?
So it's what I'm familiar with is a 1944 film
which is adapted from a 38 play.
Okay,
right.
so there was a man who was making all these small changes in the home, and it was causing the wife to question her reality. And so, basically, what they're describing is these slow cuts that cause somebody to question their own judgment.
Right.
And that is a real thing that happens.
Sure. But it takes a long time to actually gaslight somebody. Like over time to make all those changes and manipulate somebody's reality to the point where they're living something.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Okay. No, it doesn't. I can do it in a minute.
No,
I can gaslight somebody in a minute.
That's just lying.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay, give me an example.
Wait. So you said that's just lying?
Yeah,
if it causes somebody to question their reality and their judgment, it's gaslighting. It's not lying.
What's the difference between lying and gaslighting?
Well, you can have a lie and be a gaslight. Both can be true. They're not mutually exclusive.
Okay, so here's an example. This is when gaslighting gets used the most. Let me get comfortable in case we have to argue here. So, gaslighting has the only time I've ever heard it is almost always from women that I'm dating or sleeping with or whatever. And they're like, they remember an event that happened. I remember it differently. I'm not trying to make them question their fucking reality. We just remember something differently. And they say, you're gaslighting me.
Okay,
that is how it is most often used and every guy I've ever talked to about this says pretty much verbatim what I just said.
So I agree with you that the term is misused. And I agree with you that women do say this. I see women do this with gaslighting and with narcissism. Any ex that's ever hurt them is a narcissist. Okay,
for 100%.
So I'm agreeing with you on that. However, if it causes somebody to question their judgment, you can do it in a moment, or you can do it over a slow period of time.
Yeah, but it takes intent, is what I'm saying. Like you can't gaslight somebody if you're not doing it on purpose. You could just be remembering things differently. Everybody remembers everything.
That's actually true. I agree with you on that.
They remember things differently because we all experience reality differently. So if we're experiencing reality differently, then we all have our little own perception of it. Therefore, nobody's ever going to remember anything exactly the same. So if I remember something differently than my girlfriend did, I'm not gaslighting her because I remember it fucking differently. She's just potentially ego tripping or something along those lines and trying to be right in the argument. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I think gaslighting is mostly bullshit.
Well, I think that's a good distinction to make, and I agree with the way that you described that. But I don't want to downplay what, like, look, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of these terms are misused and they're overused, which takes away the significance behind what is going on.
Same thing. Two other terms, not psychology related, but like Nazi and racist. Those two things are also like regularly completely overused. Like, what's that? Misuse. Yeah. Like, because people don't want to take the time to have an intellectual conversation about something when they disagree. Why that is happening so often nowadays, or at least that's the way I perceive it, is happening more now, because the world could always have been this way. People have always just not wanted to have. They're not doing what we're doing right now. They don't want to talk about this shit. Like, we already knew that we disagree on a few things, but you're not like coming in here trying to be right. We're just trying to understand each other, right? But nobody wants to do that. People want to be right about things, which is why I think those terms are misused.
Yeah, I do too. Like,
can you give me an example of narcissism? Like, because I totally agree with you about that.
Okay.
And I think women that are very good looking, like yourself, you get called a narcissist a lot.
all the time.
If you were not as good looking as you are, I don't think that would happen.
I bet you if I had an OnlyFans, I wouldn't be hearing any of the shit that I'm hearing. But because I'm a fucking educated woman and I'm talking about this shit, they want to come in my comment section.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean? If I had an OnlyFans, you'd be subscribing. Okay?
But potentially still,
you wouldn't be calling me a narcissist.
they might still be calling you a narcissist and subscribing.
Yeah, so it's just, you know it's a fucking
saying?
double. It's just, I can't fucking win,
So what would be an example of a situation where, like what I just said, where incel, gaslighting, narcissist, one of those. Give me an example of when you think it would be misused, and then give me an example of when it would be properly used, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I think with narcissism, how I see it misused is I kind of talked. I did a show on this a little bit ago, and here's an example of how how it's misused. So I'll use myself as an example. I have some sexy pictures online, okay, but I also do a lot more than that. I'll take selfies. I take care of myself. I like to look good. I like to dress sexy. People will call me a narcissist because of that. They'll say that I'm self-centered, that I'm full of myself, and that I'm seeking attention. And I said, maybe, but that still doesn't fucking make me a narcissist.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't. Like, even if that was actually true, that still doesn't meet the diet. That doesn't make me a narcissist, okay? Here's another example of how that would be misused. Let's take children, okay? Or here's how I said it doesn't work, okay? Because they're saying, oh, these are attention-seeking behaviors. Oh, you're doing this for attention. I was like, well, that trait in and of itself doesn't qualify somebody as a narcissist, because look at children. Don't children say, look at me, mom. Hey, look at me. Look what I'm doing over here. And so I was using that as a counter. I was using that as a way to say, do you see how these traits don't make somebody in and of itself a narcissist? What I say is that for narcissism, it follows a cycle of abuse, number one, and then a pattern of behavior. And you have to have certain character traits inside that pattern of behavior to see narcissism.
So what are those character traits? What are the criteria?
So for narcissism, you have to have it. So it's a pattern of behavior. So you need to see grandiosity, sense of superiority. That can be attention-seeking behavior laced within those things, but you can't use that in and of itself. Usually there's malicious intent, malintent.
So to be a narcissist, you have to have malintent?
It's exploitive behavior. That's a better way for me to say it. So you're exploiting other people.
Like an opportunist in a way?
Yes. Yeah. They capitalize on other people. Everything is for their own personal gain.
Gotcha.
Right. And then, obviously the big thing with narcissism is a lack of empathy and remorse. So again, and then, so that's what you want to look for. So I see, I hate doing red flag videos, because I see this fucking pop psychology shit. Well, look, was he nice to the waiter? And I'm like, do you know how many fucking narcissists are nice to the goddamn waiter?
Yeah.
That
That's a
means
good point.
shit. That means shit. That's actually part of the narcissistic cycle. You know what I mean? It's to be charming and to be like, you know, like, and if we're getting into like the psychopathy of it, like psychopathy versus like sociopathy, you know, major differences there as well. And people get those mislabeled and messed up as well. But I don't know. Did I answer your question, or just go on a rant?
No. I'm thinking, because I'm thinking about the criteria that you mentioned for a narcissist, and I think that's like, it's why like a lot of confident people get called narcissists. You're confident, obviously. You're good looking, and I think with women, women get called narcissists when they're good looking, or when they're confident, or if they like post pictures of themselves, which is very similar with men. Like men that work out a lot get called narcissists all the time. Men that make a lot of money get called narcissists all the time. But I think the term narcissist is, it's I didn't really think about it so deeply to the point until now that it requires malintent. But if that's true, then nobody.
Well, let me rephrase the malintent, because you can have two types of narcissistic people. Go two ways. There's the unaware and then the aware. The aware is the real sick shit. The unaware is just reactive, you know? So I'll just say exploitive behavior, because malicious intent means they have to be aware of what they are. Not every narcissist knows what they are.
So if somebody was to say, man, I think I'm a narcissist, they potentially could be or could not be.
If I ever hear that, they're probably not.
Probably not. Okay.
Yeah, they're probably not. And you know what most empaths do? They think they're the narcissist. It's usually I can't even tell you how many people I've worked with and treated that are like, can you tell me if I'm a narcissist? And I'm like, no narcissist would ever really ask me that.
Or even care, right?
Or care. Like, because narcissism, the thing with narcissism is they don't, an actual narcissist, not NPD, because NPD is different, okay? An actual narcissist does not perceive that there is a problem. You are the problem, they are not. So I would never actually have a narcissist come to me and say, hey, am I doing something? That wouldn't happen.
So what if they were doing that to like be a fake out? You know what I'm saying?
So that's a possibility that they could. And I have had people that I've seen that study me, know what I'm doing, and they know what I want to hear. And I can read that a mile away. And I don't know how to, there's no way that I could say other than how I feel and what I sense is true and what is not.
Okay, so here's a question. How does someone become a narcissist?
That's a really great question, and I think it happens. I think narcissists and empaths are on the same side of they're like, it's just two ways that we cope differently.
Two sides of the same coin?
Yes, I really do, because I think that you can do one of two things. It's how you respond to trauma. I think that's what creates empaths, and that's what creates narcissism. Now, narcissism is like, I'm going to disconnect, I'm going to shut off my feelings, I'm going to make everything about me, and I'm going to take care of myself. Defense, a response to their trauma. Empaths are really attuned to their abusers a lot of times. They use it as a way to survive, and then they feel the feelings of others because it helps them with their own survival. Two sides, same coin, different responses.
Okay, interesting. I'm processing that. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But they're not born. They're
so
created.
There's kind of we kind of talked about this. This is getting into sociopathy. So like, there's an idea that sociopathy, is so psychopaths are more genetically wired that way, whereas sociopathy is more like nature nurture.
Right. Okay.
Right. You could say like all psychopaths are narcissistic.
Okay.
Not every like narcissist is a psychopath.
And does the same rule apply for sociopaths?
Sociopaths are different, actually. So like the thing with sociopaths is their relationships tend to be like, psychopaths can have fairly calm relationships. Sociopaths have a bit more erratic relationships.
Right.
They tend to kind of like be a little bit more chaotic.
And that's because they have like emotional issues, basically?
Well, they lack empathy, but they are able to develop attachments, whereas psychopaths, they cannot
Can't.
attach. There's nothing there.
And they're born that way, right?
That's the argument. Now, if I was actually going to look at the DSM, there's no diagnosis for a psychopath or a sociopath. It all falls under the branch of antisocial personality disorder.
Okay.
That's the actual diagnosis. Now, pop psychology talks about psychopaths and sociopaths, and we do kind of acknowledge that there are some differences, but there's no actual DSM diagnosis for it.
Interesting.
And again, that's why these things that get rutted around are not actually even accurate, you know? And I have people in my comment section acting like they know what they're talking about, and they don't.
Yeah, a lot of armchair psychiatry, or armchair psychology, I should say. But which I do all the time. But no, that's interesting. Again, with the gaslighting thing too, it's stuff that's just, those are two terms that are just totally misused all the time as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, why do you think people are calling you an incel?
I think it's because I call women out on their bullshit, and people just don't want to hear that. Which we can talk about feminism too, because I think third wave feminism or whatever we're experiencing right now, the form of feminism that we're experiencing is like complete bullshit. And when you say things like that, it pisses people off, and a lot of the time, this is exactly why. I totally just put it together.
Okay.
The people in the comments are simping for these women that they want to sleep with, but they're not sleeping with, so they're projecting it onto me. And they are, and so it's exactly what you said.
Tell me, like, I hear a lot of shit about simping and whatever, and like that term kind of frustrates me, because I'm like, okay, because in my comments, anybody that defends my position on something is now a simp, and I don't feel like that's fair.
That's maybe that term's being misused too. But like, just in general, there's a lot of guys that are like, they're not good, they're not charming, they're not this is another term that's probably misused, but they're not alpha. I don't really like that word that much.
I know,
but
it's kind of weird, right?
I'm just gonna use that for lack of a better term. But like, there's a lot of guys that they think that the way that they can get laid is by, or even just talk to women, is just by like agreeing with everything they say.
I agree with you. Yeah, I can see
those
that.
are the guys I think that call other people incels, because they're just projecting, like you said, how they feel about themselves outwardly, because they maybe don't want to deal with the fact that they're not good with women. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
But like in a sexual capacity, because
there's an agenda. I think what you're saying is like there's an agenda behind what they're just agreeing with them, because they have an agenda that, hey, if I agree, it increases my odds of sleeping with this person, and that's simping. Yes.
And that for the record, I don't think that really works. I mean, have you ever been attracted to somebody like that?
That agrees with me?
Just for all the time?
No, I'm just kidding.
Who's the sociopath, really?
You thought you were the only comedian here. No.
You're a sociopath.
Yeah, the simp and the incel thing kind of go hand in hand, but I think maybe that's why they're saying that. But also, there probably is some energy, like on my end. Again, I never really had a problem, like in my adult life. When I was a teen, a lot of like when you're going through puberty and whatnot, you can struggle with figuring out women and whatnot. I've never really had like issues with women in a sexual capacity, but like I was telling you earlier, I do struggle with relationships with women because I don't really understand how they think.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just because like I have a super masculine way of thinking, or even if it's just, I don't know what it is, honestly.
No, like that's actually that's a good point actually that you brought up, because we are very different in the way we process information and in the way we see things. So I don't think that that's a you thing, Gary. Like that's a real common struggle that a lot of men and women have, because we tend to see things through our own lens. So I see things through a female lens, my worldview, how I relate. I have never been a man. I cannot relate to that experience.
Right.
And so I look at things very differently. Just like a man is not going to be able to put himself in my shoes and walk the life of a female. Like, it's just not going to happen. And that's why communication is so important, and empathy is so important, and the need to try to understand, the want to understand is important.
Right. So that's why sometimes I'm like, dude, am I like a sociopath? Because
No.
I literally cannot, for the fucking life of me, figure out how to like appropriately or even effectively communicate with women in a relationship capacity. Because like we could sit here and talk all day, and you and I can understand.
Yeah.
At least like I can understand like what like the goals or what drives women to do certain things. But like So I just
Like, can you give me an example of like how you get hung up?
like okay. I'm trying to let me think about
Okay,
this.
sure.
Can you edit these or are these
Yes.
We can, but
Okay.
we're not gonna. No, I'm just kidding.
well, because I don't want
I'm just kidding. I'm happy to do that if you want to. Yeah.
Well, I had let me think about how to explain this.
Okay.
So, I had an ex, and like we would get into these disagreements, like here's let me put it this way, so I don't get anybody in trouble, specifically myself. I don't understand why women can't drop it, like just stop fucking talking about something when talking about it is only going to make it worse. Why is there a bypass in in the logical, the rationale? Why is there a bypass in the thought process that women get so fucking angry that and I'm an angry motherfucker sometimes, but I'm not even like this. Like the minute something is no longer producing a positive effect on the situation, I'll drop it.
Mm-hmm.
How come not all women, or how come a lot of women get so upset that they can't just drop something, and then if I'm like, hey, I'm sorry I did that, I didn't think about what I was doing.
I'll
Let's
tell you.
move past
I'll tell you
this.
exactly why. That's a great question. Because that's your worldview. Your point of view as a man is, I'm done with this. It's not productive, so I'm going to stop. That is not a woman's point of view. A woman's point of view is, it's unresolved for me. I'm going to keep talking about it until it's resolved for me.
Even if nothing's going to change.
She's not processing it that way. You're processing it very differently. See, men are tend to be more fixers, and it's like, oh, I don't see a solution.
Yeah.
This isn't helpful.
That's
It's
true.
unproductive, right? It's unproductive, so I'm just going to stop. And that's not a bad response. It's not. Okay, but a woman is like, well, this is unfinished, and I've got 500 things going around in my mind, and his energy is off. He's not making eye contact with me. I can't tell if he's mad at me. I don't want to go to bed angry, and I'm going to stay up and talk about this until I feel better, until I feel this is resolved.
Yeah, but then once you start trying to do that, and you're like, all right, look, let's talk about it. Let's not go to bed upset.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're like, well, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Well, let's instead of tacking more on that, I hope that kind of clarifies your initial answer. It's just different worldviews. Like, the solution for you was to drop it. The solution for the woman was to keep working on it.
Well, yeah, but then other times there's something I do want to talk about, and then the woman doesn't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? It's just sometimes I feel like there's no way I can fucking win.
Well, like if you're
Does that make
feeling,
sense?
yeah. So if you're in a situation where you feel like you can't say or do anything right, you're dating the wrong person.
It's every relationship I've ever fucking
Well, like
been in.
dating doesn't work till it does, though. Like most people, like here's the unpopular truth. Most people are going to be fucking with people that are not for them, because the people that are for you are far and few in between. Most people you meet are not going to be a match for you. And yet
True.
we entertain, and we see that shit right away, and we entertain the bullshit, try to make it work, and we don't stop early when we see the signs.
And then you get too invested.
And then you get attached.
Yeah.
You get attached,
Yeah.
and now we have all this drama later on. It's like most people you're not going to be compatible with, especially romantically.
Also, the drama thing. Women are definitely more dramatic than men.
Oh, you
And
think so?
100%.
You think so?
100%.
Woo! I don't
Why?
know about that,
Well,
man.
How could you? Give me
I
your
think the
argument.
drama presents differently for women than it does for men, but I would not say men are less dramatic. Let me tell you, have you seen the red pill community? Yeah. Dramatic. Drama. Any actual male narcissist, dramatic. Very dramatic. In fact, that's one of the red flags I had on my next video. I was like, they're dramatic.
Okay, give me an example.
I'll tell you one of the things that happened to me. I have so many examples. This is just a very simple one. So I was at dinner with him one time, and my girlfriend came over, and he was mad that she had interrupted our dinner. He paid for the check, stormed off, and left. Dramatic.
That is dramatic. I would
Yeah,
agree with that.
dramatic.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so it presents differently. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. I understand what you're saying. I think maybe in men the frequency is maybe less, and it's more powerful, like a more palpable feeling to them.
Mm.
And with women, it's just little, maybe smaller dramatic events. I don't know. I haven't thought about that much.
I just think that because we're so, like, I wouldn't say that men are less dramatic than women. They might have, like, what I see is I think men have more, I think men are less emotional or they don't, and not that they are actually not feeling less, but they are not showing it in the same way that women are. I think women are more connected to their emotions and men are not. And so you're perceiving and reading this as drama, or even that is being mislabeled as drama when women show or express emotions, and men tend to be more reserved or, you know, keep their feelings to themselves, and then that's seen as being cool-headed and collected.
Yeah, but I mean, women are definitely, let me put it this way, more emotional, like you said, yes, and then it becomes drama when you act on those emotions, right?
It depends. I think it can go really south for women, for sure. I think a lot of women lack emotional control. Okay, and I don't think that's good for women. I think that's really, really bad.
Yeah, but that's also not really their fault. I mean, women have different hormones. Like, I think it's easier for men to control their emotions because we have less estrogen. That's a thing that
I 100% think it is harder for women in that sense, absolutely. But it is 100% their responsibility to manage it. Like I can't say like because my fucking mood's off that I get to talk shit to somebody. Like I can't do that, you know?
You know, it's funny that I'm sitting here talking about how women are all emotional and I'm like, they're dramatic, but like I honestly am kind of like an emotionally out of control person as well. So it's kind of hypocritical for me to say this, because I fly off the handle at all sorts of crazy shit. But for me, it's because I have that like thing in my head where like a lot of the reason I get upset about things more often than not is because respect is very important to me.
Yeah.
And when I perceive something as being disrespected, it's like the only thing I like genuinely. What's that? Your deal breaker? Yeah, well, yeah, just it's like the only thing that'll like make me like snap is really
like,
just feeling like I'm disrespected.
I think that's a big one for men.
But not just with women, like even with my guy friends. Like my buddy CJ and he kept grabbing my face, and I was like, dude, fucking grab my face one more time. I'm gonna tackle you through that table, and then he did it, and I did it. You know what I'm saying? Like. So and then we broke that stool in half.
I don't think women do that kind of shit.
No, it definitely is different.
With their boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh God, girls do some nasty shit there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of like your like deal breakers in a relationship, or like things that you perceive as disrespectful?
There's obviously things like cheating, lying, stuff like that. I mean, I would say I'm pretty simple. I don't really care about a lot. I've dated a lot of strippers. I've been with too many women at this point where I'm like, I almost want to. I used to be like, yeah, I've fucked a lot of women. I feel like cool. It's like a thing that I can, you know, quantify my value from. But now I'm like, I'm fucking becoming kind of a whore, so I don't want to do that anymore. What's a deal breaker? Oh, easy kid. If they have a kid, I'll never ever date a woman with a kid ever.
Really? Why is that?
It'll never happen. I don't want to take care of somebody else's fucking kid. I can't even see my own kid. I gotta fix that first.
Do you have a kid already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a 6-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's that. That's a thing.
Okay.
So.
Do you have a relationship with the baby mama, or?
She fucking absolutely hates me, but I don't want to talk about that too much because we're on slightly better terms. I did not treat her right. When I'm man enough to admit that. I didn't know what I was fucking doing.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was doing things wrong, which is crazy to say that because I was like cheating and stuff. But I was just like, oh, who cares? It's not a big deal.
It's interesting that you say like you won't date a woman with a kid, but you got a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason why. I mean, like, I'm not trying to go spill my emotional bullshit all over somebody else's kid. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm more interested in developing like my own family. So I'm not going to that's a total deal breaker for sure.
Okay. So disrespect is a big one. Kid is a big one for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Kid for sure. Yeah. Would not date somebody with a kid. I'm trying to think of something else. Although a thought did just pop into my head about to go back to the incel thing. I think the reason that people they pick up that energy that I struggle communicating with women, and I think that's why they think that I potentially would be somebody that is an incel. Because I struggle with the communication aspect of it. Does that make sense?
It does. Like, I just think that, like, I think that most people that are calling people incels, it's really coming from their own projection.
And a lot of the guys that do that are I'm telling you, they're like those simp type characters. Mm-hmm. For real. Where does that even come from? Like, you like masculine men?
Yeah, I do.
I think most women do.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, why do these guys think that being like a little pussy is gonna and simping is gonna get them laid? I do not understand where they can even derive that thought from.
Well, I think that there's, again, if we're going back to misdiagnosis, like I don't think simping is something that women are attracted to, okay? But I also think that what a lot of people are seeing is not simping, it's empathy a lot of times. Like, I don't know what you're seeing, but I know that on my end, especially being in this like red pill sphere, if I have a man that even agrees with me, like on a point that I made, he's got like 5 dudes responding to him saying he's a simp, he's a simp, he's a simp. And that's not simping. He just has a different point of view. And then that is being labeled as a simp. And that's not really fair. Now, to your point, there are men out there that are just agreeing with women to get sure, but that is not everything, and this is in an echo chamber of shit too. It's not reflective of how things work as a whole. Most people that are out here in society doing relationships, doing life, I'm not seeing fucking simping. I'm not seeing that shit.
Who are you around though? Are you around those kind of people?
Simps?
Yeah, because I'm not really
Probably
either.
not.
And I will say also that I feel like me for sure, and potentially you, because we're talking a lot about like comments and stuff. Maybe we're talking a lot about like the social media realm of things.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm referencing. Yeah. I feel like it's probably going to be highlighted more there, right?
But that's where you're going to get those kind of people, because they're going to be the people like the same guys that are calling me an incel on a post we make are potentially the same people that are like calling a girl a whore for posting like a picture that like is risque or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I just think the online community in general is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how social media is mind-fucking everybody.
It's wild.
And it's also a large reason why that's perpetuating and disseminating all this like armchair psychiatry that's incorrect.
I agree. Like, I can't even tell you how frustrated I get when I see all these viral clips from these psychologists going around. Like, I saw this one, she's very popular, right? And she did a clip and it went pretty viral about how we're creating a generation of narcissistic women because of social media and this and this. And I was like, no, we're fucking not. That's not what that is. Now, could it lead to that? Yeah, but you're just saying this is leading to narcissism. No, it's not. Like, we're like kids have more access to these things nowadays, but that doesn't make somebody a narcissist. Wanting to post a picture, wanting to get likes does not make somebody a narcissist, and that doesn't make narcissistic women.
But what it is creating is it's creating a bunch of validation craving people in general.
Whether like we will always want validation as a human species.
Why is that? Why
is that bad?
Why do human beings want validation?
Why is that bad?
I'm not saying it is.
Yeah. I think it's just how we're wired. We're wired to have a sense of belonging. We're wired for approval. Like, if we want to talk evolutionary psychology, when we fit in, when we belong, when we're like, it increases our odds of survival. Like, I think that's why these things are inherently there, okay? But
genetically?
They're not. It's one answer. You know, I haven't really thought too much about it. Okay. I haven't really thought too much about it. You know, that's my
that was not something we originally were planning on talking about. But
yeah.
It's social media. So what do you think? I mean, my view, which is totally hilarious because we both have podcasts and are on social media a lot. And I definitely like seeing people get like likes on my posts and shit. I'm a pretty like open, honest person.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not right about everything. I speak with conviction.
You do, yeah.
And I sound like I'm just a confident fucking person. But I know I'm wrong about shit. I'm not the smartest person ever. But I do, this is something I would say I feel like I'm pretty right about, is that the overall impact of social media is having a negative effect on people in general, on humanity. I do not think it is a good thing.
So I'm going to agree with you on that.
But I also think it's totally necessary. It's impossible to get rid of.
Well, we've created a monster, right? And it's like, how do we have healthy boundaries with this monster that we've created? Because now our society runs off of this. Our businesses run off of this. Like, you know, do you know that Meta just got sued?
Good.
They're suing Meta. They're suing Meta for doing like creating addiction in youth.
For sure, because the Instagram algorithm is designed to be addictive,
and that's why they're getting sued. It's over that, like knowing that they intentionally designed it this way and it's causing harmful effects on you.
Imagine growing up. I'm 31. I didn't create an Instagram until I created a podcast. The function of my social media is pretty much completely a marketing tool. Like I never really cared about it until I started doing podcasting and media stuff, right? But imagine, I mean, I guess some of my friends kind of did grow up with Instagram to a degree. So I imagine the effect that it has on kids that are like 6 years old and are seeing stuff on Instagram all the time. Like, hey, look at this, look at these photos of our family. It's on Instagram. They see the likes. They intrinsically have a like and a red heart and a number next to it attached to like their family photos and stuff because everybody posts their family photos on Instagram, you know, or a lot of people do. But I wonder what the effect that that's having on those minds. And another interesting thing is that I think that social media is totally debilitating to a lot of people's chance of having a successful romantic relationship.
Ooh, this is a really good point. I should do a whole episode on that. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, no, I have.
No, actually, that's so interesting because I think a lot of people have this grass is greener on the other side, and then it
100%.
inflates. I will agree with Red Pill on this because
They're always looking for the next best thing, but it doesn't even really necessarily exist.
Yeah, or
you know,
or I will see this, like I will see, and I'm going to agree with Red Pill on this one. It gives people a false sense of self or value. You get a lot of likes, like you get a lot of this, and like they think that that's reflective of the value that they bring to an actual relationship. Oh, I'm really, really hot. I've got millions of followers, and they think that somehow that adds value to the relate. And I was like, oh, but it doesn't though. You know?
think that that's potentially what those red pill type people are talking about when they say women are narcissists because of social media. I think they're misusing the term narcissism, like you said, but I do also think they're not necessarily wrong.
Look, there's an element of truth in what they say, and there are some things that I align with, but then they get real wacky with this shit, and then they take it off to like the deep end.
Like what? Like what's a?
Well, just, you know, they'll say like women lose value as they age, you know, like 25, your sexual marketplace value goes down, you know, when men are smarter than women, you know.
Well, that's men and women have almost an IQ average that's almost exactly the same. So that's obviously not true.
And that's just off the top of my head, you know, and they say that, you know, it's a woman's role to be submissive and subservient to default to a man's leadership just because of his gender, not because of his intelligence or his ability to be a good leader. It's just because he's a dude, you know. So they do push a lot of that stuff that I don't think is very healthy.
How much time we got? Can we keep going?
We're going to have to kind of wrap up here pretty soon. How much time do we think we need?
I mean, I can talk forever, but I was going to say I do actually kind of agree that women's like sexual value definitely it declines after a certain point in time. That doesn't mean like a woman isn't beautiful at like 40, but a lot of guys, and I don't know why this is, but I would say that again, a lot of my, and I do have a obviously bizarre friend group, but like a lot of guys I know would agree with that too. Like just women are less desirable past a certain age, whatever that may be. I have no idea.
So like I know that's what people report, and I certainly don't want to disagree that that's what people are reporting. But when you actually meet somebody and there's a love and a connection, you tend to make exceptions for those things.
100%.
And so there's a big difference between what men report and what they actually entertain. Okay? Because let me give you a different example of this, okay? A lot of women want to date a tall guy, right? I'm going to give you a very fair example. A lot of women, if they report something, are going to say, I want to date a guy that's 6 foot taller, whatever. And how many women actually end up with a guy that's 6 foot taller and has like money and like 100 makes 6 figures? Not most, because most men are not actually 6 feet tall. Most men are like 5'9" to 5'11".
The average height of an American male, I think, is like 5'9" or 5'10".
Correct, right?
It's not even,
and you've got all these women out here dating men that are below 6 feet tall. So that example is a good comparison as to the example of a man that wants to date a younger. These are not how things actually play.
So is that settling then, or what is that?
Well, like it's not settling. Like it's not. If you're not into the person, yes, it's settling, right? Like if you're not actually into the person, it's settling. But like if you really do love this person and you're with them, that's not settling. you're fucking in love. You hit the jackpot.
You got fucking lucky, right?
Yeah. You know, so like
For
that,
sure.
like, so what people report and what they entertain and what they actually like end up committing to and falling for is not always what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. When I was saying that though, I meant like just on like a looks thing, like like an aesthetic.
Yeah, it's just look, and that's fair enough, and I don't disagree with you on that. I agree that that's what people report, that's what they say, but I like to come in and give a fuller picture with things like that because it misrepresents relationships, and then I'm also trying to give people hope. Because I think that's really important,
No,
especially
I
in
agree.
love, dating, and relationships. Like, you know, if we continue to like put this message out here that, hey, at 25, girls, you're fucking done.
Yeah. And that's not
Okay.
You know what? Okay,
like,
so let me put this caveat in there. That could have potentially have been a realistic way for men to view women in a relationship capacity like 50 years ago. But in the modern day, I don't think it's real. It's not a realistic thing to think that. Also, like, a woman that was like 35 in 1960 looked dramatically different than a woman that's
True.
35 now.
yeah.
I don't know. I think I don't think it's totally a realistic way. I'm just saying, but yeah, like you said, that's what they report, right? Like that's what they say.
Yeah, but like that's a really good question. Like it's a really good question, and it's still like I'm still kind of thumbing through that argument a little bit, you know. But it's good, and they're good. It's good to have conversations about those things, you know. Men can want what they want, and women can want what they want. Like I don't have a problem with either one. If you got a guy that only wants to date a 25-year-old, fine. But there are plenty of dudes that don't.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say that's definitely that's the exception to the rule.
I only fucking hear that shit in the red pill community. I don't hear that shit anywhere else. I don't hear that anywhere else.
I would say
I don't hear that anywhere else. I don't hear dudes talking about a girl's body count. I don't hear this shit anywhere else but here.
I don't think a lot of guys have the balls to say that shit out loud though.
Do you think that
For
that's
sure.
like
Guys are more of pussies than you would realize, for sure. Like,
you think so?
Yeah, people don't want to say things out loud because they're like, it's because they don't want to say shit that's gonna get them not laid. I swear to God, because men are fucking simps. I do think that like the generation of men that like my generation of men, they're fucking pretty weak.
Yeah.
Like the bar is set low, and I don't know why that is.
Like what do you think is lacking in like men now?
Like standing up for what they believe in, not going with the crowd, you know, but also like just stepping in to handle business. Like when something bad is happening, I feel like a lot of like, and again, maybe society's always been like this. I don't know, but I feel like when something like if somebody was to get mugged, I feel like most men would just be like they'd be scared to do something.
I actually agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
And I think that there's a litany of reasons why that could be true. Like you could get in with like all like the legalities in the world now. Like if you were to like help save a dying person, you could get sued if something bad happened to them. Like
I know.
there's reasons like that, but also just like in general, I do just think that I feel like there's just a lot of guys that are pussies now. It could have always been like that though, because I've only been alive for 30 years. So what do I really know?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No, I think your insights are really good, and I do like agree with you on some of that. I do think that we are losing some masculinity, and I think that there's also kind of a misrepresentation of what that is, and I don't think that there's a lot of good leaders for men.
Yeah.
And that makes me really sad. But I also don't feel like men can really have the freedom to be vulnerable in a lot of ways or express that because it's seen as negative. So it's just kind of like this.
Yeah, but it's that. We got to wrap. So I have.
Look, like I think I know what you're gonna say. Women do want vulnerability from men. They do. What they want is emotional control. They don't want their men to pop off and start fucking crying and shit like that. But they do want not even not cry. It's the ability to express themselves and be vulnerable. Like they do want that vulnerability. It doesn't mean that you lose it and you can't control yourself. Like women want that emotional intimacy from men. They do. Now men have a wacky view of what that looks like because of what other people project that to be.
So you're saying that, and I'll take your word for this, you're a woman, but you're saying that women actually do find it attractive for men to be vulnerable.
Yeah, well, yes, the context is important, okay? Like like women love strength, they love masculinity, they love these character traits in men. Don't want them to change that, okay? But this like I can't cry, I can't talk about my feelings, like that is not something that's desirable for women.
I feel like any guy that's cried in front of their girlfriend, their girlfriend probably just doesn't respect them after that.
That's not true. That it's honestly, it's just not true. Like I know that that's the message that's being pushed to men, and like I think that I think we have to give a healthier view of what this actually looks like, because I don't think men actually know what women would prefer in this area, and perhaps women, we need to do a better job describing that, because it doesn't really like. Take my word for it, Gary. You want emotional vulnerability and connection from your partner, okay? That emotional intelligence really important for a woman. She can't even fucking orgasm if she doesn't have it, okay? Like can't even come if she doesn't have it.
I must be better at communicating with
than you
women
thought.
what I think I am.
Well, guys, on that note, we are going to have to wrap up. But Gary, please tell everybody where they can find you.
Just go to the.scary.gary on Instagram, and then my YouTube is just, I think, Gary Faust. But check out Drunk Uncle's podcast. You will understand why she was interested in bringing me in here, because we talk about some crazy shit on there, and we're just out of our minds. It's fun, though. It's with Uncle Laser, my buddy Bobby Flacco. And, yeah. I'm glad I could come in here and be vulnerable. I feel kind of gay, but whatever. It is what it is.
Look, I really do appreciate your insights. I appreciate the challenge. I had a great conversation with you today, and I appreciate your honesty and your openness and being able to tackle these things and coming out here. And I hope you don't get into too much trouble during the rest of your stay in Vegas or get arrested. On that note, guys, pop the pink pill.
We clear?